I want a 20% raise and I want it now. Those were the exact words that nearly destroyed Oliver Bennett's career. Not because he asked, but because of how he asked. 30 seconds into that meeting, his boss had already written him off. Arms crossed, face like thunder, complete shutdown. Oliver walked out with nothing. Worse than nothing, actually. He walked out with a damaged relationship and a reputation as difficult. But here's the mad thing. 18 months later, that same Oliver negotiated a 35% raise, a promotion, and flexible working arrangements. Same company, same boss, completely different outcome. What changed? One book, 4 principles, and a total rewiring of how he understood the word negotiation. Alright, welcome back to the channel, you beautiful humans. Today we're diving into an absolute masterpiece, Getting to Yes by Roger Fisher and William Ury. This book has been the negotiation Bible since 1981, and honestly, it's more relevant now than ever. But here's my promise to you. I'm not going to lecture you with theory and academic waffle. Instead, I'm going to tell you a story. The story of Oliver Bennett. 31 years old, lives in Bristol, works as a senior project manager at a mid-sized tech company. Lovely bloke, genuinely. Good at his job, cares about people, wants to do right by everyone. And absolutely catastrophic at negotiation. Whether it was asking for a raise, dealing with difficult clients, sorting out disagreements with colleagues, or even deciding where to go for dinner with his girlfriend Emma, Oliver either avoided conflict entirely or went in so hard that he made everything worse. Sound familiar to anyone? Yeah, thought so. This is the story of how Oliver learned that negotiation isn't about winning or losing. It's about getting to yes together. Let's get into it. Right, let's set the scene properly. It's February, miserable weather, proper grey, drizzly, that Bristol dampness that gets into your bones. Oliver's sat at his desk in the open plan office, staring at his screen, but not actually seeing anything. He's been with this company, Nexus Digital Solutions, for 4 years now. Good 4 years, actually. He's delivered solid projects, built strong relationships with clients, mentored junior team members. But here's the thing that's been eating away at him. He hasn't had a meaningful raise in 2.5 years. Cost of living's gone mental. His rent's increased twice. He's watching his savings slowly drain. Meanwhile, he knows that he's delivering more value than his salary reflects. His mate James, who started the same time as him, but at a different company, is on 20 grand more. 20 grand! So Oliver does what most of us do when we're frustrated and feeling undervalued. He stews for weeks. The resentment builds. The internal monologue gets increasingly dramatic. He starts interpreting everything his boss Sarah does as a personal slight. And then one day, after a particularly stressful project delivery, he snaps. He marches into Sarah's office without booking a meeting. She's on the phone, holds up one finger like, "Give me a minute." But Oliver's committed now, adrenaline pumping. The moment she hangs up, he launches in. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about my compensation. I've been here 4 years, I've delivered consistently, and quite frankly, I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. I want a 20% raise, and I want it effective immediately." Silence. Sarah's face goes through about 4 different expressions in 2 seconds. "Oliver," she says slowly, "I appreciate you bringing this up, but this isn't how we have these conversations. I can't just magic money out of thin air. There's a process." "The process hasn't worked for me," Oliver interrupts. "I've been patient, I've followed the process, and nothing's changed." Now Sarah's getting defensive. Her tone shifts. "If you're unhappy here, Oliver, perhaps you should consider your options." Ouch. That's not what Oliver wanted to hear. But it's what happens when you come in guns blazing with no strategy, no understanding of the other side, and nothing but demands. He backs down, apologizes, leaves the office feeling worse than before, humiliated, still underpaid, and now with a damaged relationship with his boss. Classic positional bargaining. And it failed spectacularly. That evening, Oliver's slumped on his sofa in his flat in Bedminster, third beer deep, when his girlfriend Emma gets home. "How'd the conversation go?" she asks, already knowing from his face. "Disastrously." Emma sits down next to him. She's a barrister, trained in conflict resolution, and she's been watching Oliver struggle with this stuff for 2 years. "Babe," she says gently, "can I recommend something? Without you biting my head off?" "Go on then." She reaches into her work bag and pulls out a book. Getting to Yes by Fisher and Ury. "This changed how I approach every difficult conversation," Emma says. "Not just in court, but in life. Maybe it'll help you figure out where it went wrong today." Oliver looks at the book skeptically, but he's desperate and he trusts Emma. "All right," he says, "I'll give it a read." He doesn't know it yet, but that book is about to rewire his entire brain. Next few weeks, Oliver devours the book, and the first principle that properly hits him, like a slap in the face, is this: separate the people from the problem. See, here's what Oliver did wrong in that meeting with Sarah. He made it personal. He came in with accusations. "I feel like I'm being taken advantage of." That immediately puts Sarah on the defensive, because now she's not just dealing with a salary discussion, she's dealing with an attack on her character. But here's what Oliver didn't consider. Sarah isn't his enemy. Sarah's a middle manager with her own budget constraints, her own bosses to answer to, her own pressures and limitations. Fisher and Ury write, "Every negotiator has 2 kinds of interests, in the substance and in the relationship." Oliver was so focused on substance, getting more money, that he torched the relationship in the process. Now, let's see how this lesson lands in Oliver's real life. A few days after finishing this chapter, Oliver's dealing with a nightmare client situation. Bloke called Richard Hartley, CEO of a small manufacturing company in Swindon. They've been working on a digital transformation project that's gone over budget, and Richard is furious. "This is completely unacceptable," Richard's shouting down the phone. "You've taken us for mugs. Your team has been incompetent from day one." Old Oliver would have done one of 2 things. Either apologize profusely and take all the blame, doormat mode, or get defensive and start pointing fingers back, combat mode. But new Oliver pauses, takes a breath, and separates the person from the problem. "Richard," he says calmly, "I can hear you're really frustrated, and honestly, I would be too if I were in your position. The project hasn't gone as planned, and that's not what either of us wanted." Immediate shift in Richard's tone. Not complete calm, but softer. "Well, no, it's not. Let's do this," Oliver continues. "Rather than focusing on what went wrong, can we sit down together and figure out how to get this back on track? I want to find a solution that works for both of us." What Oliver's done here is crucial. He's acknowledged Richard's feelings. He hasn't been dismissive or defensive, but he also hasn't accepted blame or made promises he can't keep. He's moved them from adversaries to collaborators facing a shared problem. The call ends with a meeting scheduled for next week. Not perfect, but progress. Real progress. Oliver hangs up and sits back in his chair. "Bloody hell," he mutters. "That actually worked." The relationship's not repaired overnight, but it's no longer deteriorating. And that's everything in negotiation. But separating people from problems is just the foundation. The next principle goes even deeper. Right, this is where things get really interesting. Focus on interests, not positions. Fisher and Ury illustrate this with a brilliant story, and I want to share it because it's so perfect. 2 sisters are fighting over an orange. Each wants the whole orange. Eventually they compromise and cut it in half. Sounds fair, right? But then one sister takes her half, eats the fruit, and throws away the peel. The other sister takes her half, throws away the fruit, and uses the peel for baking. See the problem? Both could have had everything they actually wanted. But because they argued over positions, I want the orange, rather than interests, I want to eat the fruit, or I need the peel for a recipe, they both ended up with less. This blew Oliver's mind. He started thinking about his disaster conversation with Sarah differently. His position was, I want a 20% raise. But what were his actual interests? He writes them down. Financial security, rents going up, wants to save. Recognition for his contributions. Career progression. Feeling valued and motivated. Now here's the genius bit. What if there are ways to address those interests that don't require a 20% raise? What if Sarah has budget constraints that make a big raise impossible right now, but there are other options neither of them considered? Maybe a smaller raise now with a guaranteed review in 6 months, a performance bonus structure, additional holiday days, training budget for certifications that'll boost his career, a clearer promotion pathway. Suddenly, there's room to maneuver, options, flexibility. But here's the flip side, equally important. What are Sarah's interests? Oliver had never considered this. He'd been so focused on what he wanted that he never stopped to think about what Sarah might need from this conversation. Her interests might include keeping a valuable team member, Oliver's genuinely good at his job, staying within budget constraints, being seen as a fair and effective manager, maintaining team morale, avoiding setting precedents that cause problems with other team members. Understanding this completely changes the conversation. It's no longer Oliver versus Sarah. It's Oliver and Sarah versus the problem of how to make this work for everyone. Now let's see this in action. Saturday afternoon, Oliver and Emma are looking at flats together. They've been talking about moving in properly, getting somewhere bigger. They're viewing a lovely 2-bed in Clifton. High ceilings, decent kitchen, beautiful period features. But it's at the very top of their budget. Estate agent, bloke called Marcus, bit slick, very confident, gives them the tour. So, what do you think? Marcus asks. It's very popular, this one. Had 3 viewings yesterday alone. Won't last long. Old Oliver would have done one of 2 things. Either panic and offer asking price immediately, fear of loss, or lowball aggressively and alienate the seller, win-lose mentality. But Emma catches his eye. She gives him a little nod. Go on then, practice what you've been reading. We really like it, Oliver says honestly. The location's great and it suits what we're looking for. Marcus smiles. Here comes an easy sale. But I'm curious, Oliver continues. Do you know what's most important to the seller? Quick completion? Maximum price? Something else? Marcus pauses. This isn't the usual conversation. Well, actually, the owner's relocating to Edinburgh for work. Needs to be out by end of March. Speed's quite important to them. Bingo. Oliver and Emma exchange a glance. That's useful to know, Oliver says. Because we're in a good position, we're chain-free, pre-approved mortgage, could complete quickly. What if we offered slightly below asking, but guaranteed completion by mid-March? Marcus's eyes light up. This actually solves his client's biggest problem. I think they'd be very interested in that. Let me make a call. 2 hours later, their offer's accepted. $4,000 below asking price. Because Oliver focused on interests, the seller's need for speed, rather than fighting over positions. He's finally getting it. Right, quick pause here because we're about halfway through Oliver's journey and I want to check in with you lot. If this is making sense, if you're starting to think differently about negotiations in your own life, do me a favor and drop a comment below. Tell me, what's one negotiation you've got coming up where you could use these principles? Also, if you haven't subscribed yet, now's the time. We do deep dives like this every week, breaking down books that'll genuinely upgrade how you think and operate. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss the next one. And if you want exclusive content, Q&As, and early access to videos, check out the membership options below. Your support means everything. Right, back to Oliver. Okay, third principle. And this one's where negotiation stops being about compromise and starts being about creation. Invent options for mutual gain. Most people approach negotiation like they're dividing a pie. Fixed size. If you get more, I get less. Zero sum. Fisher and Ury argue, what if you could make the pie bigger? This requires creativity, brainstorming, and genuinely wanting the other person to also walk away happy. Oliver's testing ground for this principle comes in the most unexpected place: his relationship. Oliver and Emma have moved into the Clifton flat. It's been a month. Generally going well, but they've hit a snag. Emma's work requires her to be in London fairly regularly, 2 or 3 days a week sometimes. She's been offered a more permanent position at a London Chambers, which would be a massive career move. But Oliver's job is in Bristol. His network's here. His family's nearby. They're sat on the sofa one evening, and the conversation's getting tense. "I can't just say no to this opportunity," Emma says. "It's huge for my career." "I know," Oliver replies, "but I can't just quit my job and move to London either. What am I supposed to do? Start over?" Old Oliver, positional Oliver, would have dug in. You have to choose, London or us. Or worse, he would have surrendered completely. "Fine, I'll move. My career doesn't matter." But new Oliver catches himself. He takes a breath. "Hang on," he says. "We're arguing about positions. You move, I stay, we break up, whatever. What if we stepped back and figured out what we actually need here?" Emma's intrigued. "Go on then." They start listing their actual interests. Emma's interests: career advancement, intellectual challenge, being taken seriously in her field, long-term financial security, not losing Oliver. Oliver's interests: career stability, doesn't want to start over, staying connected to family and friends, their relationship continuing, not feeling like he's holding her back. Now they brainstorm options. No judgment. No, that's stupid. Just ideas. What if Emma took the London role, but they kept the Bristol flat and she commuted 2 or 3 days a week? What if Oliver explored remote work possibilities at his company? He's been wanting to ask anyway. What if they tried it for a year, reviewed, and made a decision then? What if Emma negotiated for more Bristol-based work where possible? Suddenly, what felt like an impossible either-or situation has 5 or 6 possible paths forward. They land on a hybrid solution. Emma takes the role, works from their Bristol flat 2 days a week. Oliver negotiates remote flexibility from his side, and they reassess in 12 months. Neither got exactly what they initially wanted, but both got their interests met. That's the magic of inventing options for mutual gain. And there's one more principle that ties it all together. Last principle, and honestly, this one's the glue that holds everything else together. Insist on using objective criteria. See, even when you're focused on interests, even when you're inventing options, eventually you need to make a decision. And that decision needs to feel fair. The best negotiations don't rely on who's more stubborn, or who's got more power, or who shouts loudest. They rely on objective standards, market rates, precedents, expert opinions, fair procedures. This brings us to Oliver's redemption arc. It's been about 6 months since the disastrous conversation with Sarah. Oliver's been quietly building back the relationship, working hard, being professional. He's also been doing his homework, industry salary surveys, Glassdoor data, LinkedIn research on comparable roles. He's spoken to recruiters. He knows what project managers with his experience are earning in the Bristol tech scene. He's ready. He books a proper meeting with Sarah this time. Calendar invite, agenda attached, professional. They sit down in a meeting room. Oliver takes a breath. Sarah, I wanted to revisit the compensation conversation we had earlier this year. I know I handled it badly then, and I want to approach it differently this time. Sarah looks cautiously optimistic. Okay, I'm listening. First, I want to understand your constraints. I know budgets aren't unlimited, and I know there are processes involved. Can you help me understand what room you have to work with? Sarah appreciates being asked. She opens up about the budget cycle, about what's realistically possible, about the timing challenges. Okay, Oliver says. So knowing that, let me share some research I've done. He slides a document across the table, market salary data, comparable roles at competitor companies, his own performance metrics over the past year. Based on this, I think my current salary is about 15 to 20% below market rate for someone with his experience and delivery record. I'm not saying this to demand anything. I'm saying it because I think we should base any decision on fair, objective criteria rather than just haggling. Sarah looks at the data. She can't argue with it. It's solid. What would you like to see happen? She asks. Honestly, I'd like to get to market rate over the next 18 months. If that's not possible all at once, maybe we structure it. An increase now, a review in 6 months, performance-linked bonuses. I'm open to creative solutions. What Oliver's done here is beautiful. He's separated the person from the problem, not attacking Sarah. He's focused on interests, not positions, career development, fair pay, feeling valued. He's invented options for mutual gain, phased increases, bonuses. He's insisted on objective criteria, market data, performance metrics. The conversation goes on for an hour. It's collaborative, not combative. 2 weeks later, Oliver gets an offer. 12% raise immediately. Clear pathway to senior manager within a year, with another salary bump attached. Training budget for leadership development. 35% more than he was making 18 months ago. Tick. Relationship with his boss, not just repaired, but stronger than ever. Tick. Actually enjoying the process rather than dreading it. Tick. So, where does Oliver end up? A year after that first disastrous meeting, he's genuinely a different negotiator, which means he's a different communicator, which means, honestly, he's a different person. He and Emma are thriving. Their hybrid arrangement worked, and they've actually decided to look for a place with a proper home office so they can both work flexibly. His work relationships are better than ever. He's become the guy people come to when there's a difficult conversation to be had. Even his family dynamics have shifted. He managed to navigate a genuinely tricky conversation with his brother about their mum's care arrangements, using the same principles. But here's the thing I want you to take away. Oliver didn't become some master manipulator. He didn't learn dark arts of persuasion. He learned to see negotiation for what it really is, a shared problem-solving process. The 4 principles are beautifully simple. 1. Separate the people from the problem. Be soft on people, hard on problems. Protect the relationship while tackling the issue. 2. Focus on interests, not positions. Dig beneath what people say they want to understand what they actually need. That's where solutions hide. 3. Invent options for mutual gain. Brainstorm before deciding. Be creative. The best outcomes often aren't on the table until someone imagines them. 4. Insist on objective criteria. Use fair standards, market rates, precedents, expert opinions, so decisions feel legitimate to everyone. That's it. That's the whole framework. Simple enough to remember, powerful enough to transform how you deal with, well, everything. Because here's the final truth Fisher and Ury leave us with. You negotiate every single day. With bosses, partners, friends, family, landlords, estate agents, customer service reps, even yourself. The question isn't whether you negotiate. The question is whether you do it well. Oliver's learned to do it well. Now it's your turn. If this video helped you, share it with someone who needs it. We've all got an Oliver in our lives. Maybe it's even us. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one. Go get your yes. Cheers.